Know if I've ever mentioned this, but every month, usually, we missed it for the Seattle conference, but I go to this mental health care luncheon. I get to meet all kinds of mental health professionals from all over my particular state. And so today's guest is someone that I met in person that I thought, ooh, she's a bit of a unicorn, and she's someone that I have not ever interviewed before. Let me see if she's here. Yep, she's here. Okay, Sue, let me get you on. So, for those of you that already know a little bit about my background, you might know that I spent a long time, here she is, a long time in family court, including in the court that Sue worked in, but we just missed each other. And so she has a lot of hats that she has worn and wears now. But before I even introduce her, because she's here now, she got on so smoothly. Thank you. I'll let her introduce herself. But before that, I'm going to ask her a very quick question. Sue, how many times have you had to use the phrase, "you're not going to like it," with the people that you've dealt with?
Thousands. I can't even count.
Okay. All right. So now tell us who you are. What's your background? I did like to do a little drum roll because I started talking a little bit about the court that I was in. What did you used to do?
No problem. So I am a former family relations counselor here in Connecticut. Family relations is the division in Connecticut that handles divorce, custody, and domestic violence. So any custody disputes, whether you're married or not, any sort of parenting plans, visitation, child support, all goes through that division of the court. I spent 5 years working there in Bridgeport and Stamford and covering a few others, but predominantly Bridgeport and Stamford were my main offices.
Yeah. And so family relations, in my mind, is kind of similar to what I've seen in other states and countries, like court ordered mediation.
Correct.
Sometimes I remember I had to go through family relations countless times. I was very
hmm
irritated that I kept being sent to family relations because I felt like it wasn't very helpful. And I imagine that many people that you met in your past career were just like, why am I even bothering talking to you? But there's something that you said in one of our conversations about the benefits of keeping things out of the actual courtroom. How beneficial is it to try, not saying that you have to use family relations, but to keep your case out of family court?
Yeah, I mean, judges are going to make rulings based on, what you're presenting, but they're human. So could there be bias? Sure. And they don't really know the ins and outs of your family. So the idea for family relations in Connecticut is before seeing the judge, you have to stop there. You have to try and work out the issue. So it's sort of like a mini mediation, to try to work out the issue. Can we come to an agreement? And if you can't, then you're going to the judge. And I always say it's like playing Russian roulette. You don't know what you're going to get. And generally, neither of you are going to get what you want. You're both going to, you know, probably not be happy. Like some people will come out and feel like I won, but what did you win? What did you really win? I always would ask people. So if you could come to a compromise, I like to say, like, what are the core things that you're not willing to compromise on, like that you're not willing, like your values, like things that you really don't want to give up, but what are the things you're willing to be flexible on? Let's look at that for both of you and try to come up with something before going in front of a judge who really doesn't know, who you guys are and what's best for your family.
So certain states like California, when there is something a little bit similar to family relations, not the same thing, the person who's running it has an influence on the judge. But I don't think it was that way in Connecticut. How strong is your recommendation after you meet with a couple once or 15 times
So
to
they
indicate? Go ahead.
Yep. So they weigh very heavily on what we say. If you do a custody evaluation in Connecticut, which is where family relations is meeting with the clients, meeting with them together, separately, talking with the children, and we make recommendations based on that. They weigh very heavily on that. If you go to trial or some type of a hearing and we're subpoenaed, they weigh heavily on what we have to say because they know we've done the work. We have put, I always say we've put the 6 hours in, which is not doesn't sound like a lot, but
Yeah.
it's more than the judge is going to do. The judge isn't going to come, interview each of you individually, talk to your children, talk to your collaterals. So basically, we did the legwork for the judges. So of course, they're going to weigh heavily on that. The expectation is that you guys are going to work this out. And if not, I'm going to make a decision. And yeah, sure, it's based on, the facts that you're offering me, but neither one of you are going to win. You're both going to be giving up something there. So I always say, your family better than myself, anybody else. Try and come to the compromise. I'm happy to help you and be that voice of reason, but let's try to come up with this. And a lot of times, we were pushed to kind of force people into making decisions. The idea is, I don't, the judges don't want to see you. You're clogging up their system. They want to go play golf or do whatever they need to do, but kind of strong arming these people. Who's the weaker of the links, and get that person to bend.
That's exactly what we we tell our clients too, is like often when professionals are working with a difficult person, they're going to focus on the one who's more likely to give in because they just want you out of there, right? That's the
Yeah.
reality of it.
And we didn't want to write that 20-page report or whatever it is. So if I could get you to degree, I just have to write a little blurb, send my recommendations, and be done.
Mhm.
It's not an enjoyable job at all.
Yeah, yeah. So, speaking of that and all your experience with it, we know that many people make mistakes when they come in. Can you tell us some of the ones? And I have my list from what we talked about the other day, but some of the things that you remember seeing where it was not helpful for their case.
Yeah, I mean, coming in with suitcases full of papers and pictures and all of this evidence, we don't have enough time to go through that. So one is, you think you're preparing. I mean, that's you prepare that for a trial. People would, we have very limited time with you. Come in and tell me the facts. And I tell people that I work with, make a calendar if you want to show like the time of your parenting plan, color coordinate it. I'm not going to read through text messages, emails, papers that you've written, journals. Give me the facts. If you're trying to show me that, hey, I spend 85% of the time with the children, color code it. Let me look at it and see it.
Mhm.
People coming in and telling me that, you know, little Johnny has soccer on Saturdays and dad needs to take him. Dad doesn't have to take him. Should dad take him if they're in a close enough proximity? Sure. But you know, extracurricular activities aren't going to be like if the two of you were together.
Mm.
Sometimes dad or mom could live an hour away, to drive an hour down on Saturday for a game and then drive an hour back plus traffic. I mean, that's a lot of time. And sometimes the parent who has the visitation has very small blocks of time. Some people only have every other weekend or one weekend day every other weekend, and they feel like I don't want to do that. I want to take my kid and I want to visit grandma. We've got cousins to play with. So there are going to be times that your kid does miss out on some extracurricular activities.
Yeah,
They're
I'm
not.
going to pause with that because that comes up a lot in our community and with our clients in particular, where they'll say, "But shouldn't the child's needs come first? Why am I the one who takes the kid to all the activities if we have 50-50?" So it's not where my ex has a lot less time. We have 50-50. My kid's taking swim classes, and I paid for them, and my ex isn't bringing them to swim lessons. Don't we want our kid to learn to swim? What would you say to me?
Well, I would say, I would ask the other parent, do you want your child to learn to swim? But we can't force them. We cannot force the parent to do anything on their time except go to school and take them to the doctor if they're sick.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that sort of ship sailed when you guys chose to get divorced or chose not to get married and have a child, and you're co-parenting, but we can't make them do anything. As long as there's no abuse, there's no neglect, that's an extracurricular. And yeah, you may have paid for it and you're going to take them on your time, but they might not go swimming on, when they're with the other parent.
Yeah. So speaking of the two words you just used, abuse and neglect, those words, especially abuse, are thrown around a lot. Do you
Yeah.
see people come in and say, "But my ex is abusing the kids"?
Yeah. And I need you to the burden of proof is on you to show that. what is abuse? I mean, have you called DCF? Is there physical abuse? Mental abuse is subjective, and that's really hard. And I get it. Sometimes there is mental abuse going on that, we don't see, but the burden of proof is on you. If you say dad's an alcoholic or mom's an alcoholic or mom's got psych issues, you need to bring that proof. Is there a DUI? Have they been pulled over for driving drunk? Has the other parent, have they been in a psychiatric facility? You have to bring that proof to the court, because otherwise, imagine somebody walks in and says about, you, hey, they're an alcoholic, or they do drugs, or they're abusing, they're allegations until you can bring proof. And I do want to recognize that sometimes there is abuse that is covert, and you know maybe you never reported it, or it's not seen, or it happens behind closed doors. So I don't want to diminish that, but you have to bring the evidence. This is court. This isn't just, he said, she said. You have to have evidence.
So let's say I'm writing in a journal all the things that happen, and I show you, I know you said you're not going to read it, but I say, I've got all these records of what I wrote down.
Yeah, it's not proof.
Yeah.
It's your word. And again, if a third party witnessed it, if a teacher said, yeah, I saw the other parent screaming at little Johnny and manhandling him, and they would have had to call DCF anyway. So, and it can't be just your best friend, because, my best friend would say whatever I asked her to say. So it really is the proof. Like, you can't just say, well, I wanted to submit to alcohol testing. And if they're not going to agree, you're going to go to a hearing. And if this parent has never had a DUI, never been in rehab, there's been no, you know, proof that, sure, you're an adult, you can have a beer, but no proof that this parent is an alcoholic, then, unfortunately, they're going to say, there's no proof.
Okay, so say I'm throwing you actual questions that we've gotten, of course. My ex sent me an email where they acknowledged that they were an alcoholic 3 years ago. So they need testing.
Well, that was 3 years ago, and has the child been with the parent in these past 3 years? Why now? That's the other thing. You're so afraid, or he's an alcoholic, but you've been letting him go for the past 3 years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that we're being like, I call it the harsh New York reality check. We'll call it the harsh Connecticut reality check, but it's very important for people to understand what they're dealing with, instead of getting these ideas and then coming in and
Yeah.
being really let down. What about when someone says, but my ex is a narcissist?
Hmm. These words, these buzzwords, started being thrown around. True narcissism, it's like 1 or 2% of the population that is truly diagnosed. Maybe it's 3%. I don't know the exact. But sure, could they have narcissistic traits? Yeah, but that doesn't make them a narcissist. Person, that type of personality disorder is such a low number to be truly diagnosed without a full psychological evaluation. It's just, maybe they're a toxic person. I don't disagree. There could be some toxicity, there could be some selfishness, but be careful with labels, because labels don't really matter in court. They're not going to do anything for you.
Well, also, if someone's dealing with kids, even if their ex has a diagnosis and it doesn't impact the way they are with the kids, then
Correct.
does it really matter if I have a diagnosis, but I can't show the impact, the visible impact on our children?
No, it really matters. People could be a really crappy husband or wife or, partner, but they could be a really good parent. And I have seen that. I have seen some wonderful moms and dads that were really crappy partners.
Yeah. So I'm going to put the word crappy aside and say, but my ex was physically abusive to me. How can you consider putting my kids alone with that person when look what they've done to me? I can show proof of what they did to me. Now, it didn't happen in front of the kids. They haven't done anything to the kids. We often talk about how domestic violence, in many situations, we separate it from custody. Is that true?
Yeah. So again, you could have a protective order against, the parent, but the children have not been affected in any way. And yeah, I get it. Like, domestic violence is real, and the abuse that you may have suffered is real, but it doesn't make him, doesn't mean that's going to happen to the children. It has not happened. There has been no physical abuse. There's no proof. So the two of you just need to stay away from each other. And that's why they set up pickups and drop offs at police stations or with a third party to protect you, but your children still need a parent.
Okay, what about my ex is growing weed in their house and the kids can see it?
Well, are
And I
they?
have
And what's
pictures. I have pictures. I have pictures.
Well, those pictures can be from anywhere. Pictures aren't enough. And in Connecticut, you can now grow weed, and every state is different. So
Yeah.
knowing that it is legal, but it's just like anything else. You can't drive under the influence. So you would need to be, how are you going to prove if you're saying, well, my ex smokes weed and drives with the kids? There is that you can have a beer and you can go pick up your kids if you're not legally under the influence. I might be with one beer, maybe you would, but the 6'3", person would not be. So again, it comes to, yes, you might be uncomfortable with what they're doing. And I think the marijuana laws, legalizing it is just like alcohol. You might be very uncomfortable with your kids, seeing that or being around that, but there might be nothing illegal about it. As
Yeah.
long as it's, they're not ingesting it, it's not being shared with them.
Yeah. Here's another one. My ex doesn't know how to put the car seat in properly and sometimes doesn't buckle our kids in. And I'm really scared that they're going to have an accident. I see that person driving away and the kids aren't buckled in. What do I do?
You'd call the police and you would call DCF. You'd have to have proof. Or, sometimes the children have a guardian ad litem or an attorney for the minor child where the kids are saying, yes, I don't get buckled in. There is some weight to that, but you have to be careful because some kids are coached to say things, unfortunately.
Hmm.
But that would be something you would call the police as they're driving away, or you would call DCF.
Okay, so let's say it's acknowledged that my ex is unsafe. What do I ask the court to do?
You would
But it's
ask for,
extreme. It's the car seat thing. It's not, it's not cocaine on the bedside table with a 3-year-old wandering around and the parents asleep. So it's, but they're kind of clueless and I'm really worried, but I don't know what to ask the judge to do if I do
yeah,
end
I
up
mean,
in court.
you could ask for them to take, in Connecticut, if you're getting divorced, you have to take the parenting education program. But you could ask, I would like my, the other parent to take some parenting education classes. You can call DCF, so at least the report is there. And if this continues to happen, it's reported. I mean, that's the biggest piece. Yes, it's a law here that the kids have to be in car seats till like age 7 or whatever the weight is, and that you have to wear a seatbelt. So those things are legal issues.
Yeah.
If you feel like they're driving away and the car seat's not buckled, call the police. That's what I would say. If it were my child, and I knew like, oh my God, this is unsafe, but maybe you buckle them in the seatbelt when you pick them up. You're right. You're going to question, are they buckled in? I hope every parent buckles their kids in, but I have seen, had read reports where the kids were walking around the car when they were pulled over,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Another assumption I think that people make is that, legal custody is going to be mine. So I've been the one who's taken them to doctor's appointments. I'm the one who's gone to all the IEP meetings. So therefore I get decision making, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big one. People come in and they say, I want custody. Tell me what do you mean? Because
Mm-hmm.
in Connecticut, it is assumed that both parents will hold joint legal custody
Mm-hmm.
unless you can show proof that they have stopped you from making a decision medically, educationally, or religion. That is all legal custody is made up of in Connecticut. So education is public versus private school. That is basically it. So if you are getting divorced and your kids have been in private school, we are assuming that they are going to stay in private school. If your kids are in public,
Homeschool, but I've been homeschooling for 9
well,
years.
that then your kid will remain in homeschooling. If that
But
was
my
like,
ex doesn't want it. My ex doesn't want our kid. My ex wants our kids to go to public school.
well, but if while you were married that you guys have been doing the homeschooling, then that's where what it's going to continue to be.
Oh,
You
okay. Interesting.
Yeah, it's the assumption is if you were married, so there's a big difference here. If you were married, it's like the precedence was set. If your child is in daycare, they're going to remain in daycare. If your child's been in public school, they're going to remain in public school. If one parent wants to go, hey, I want my kid to go to private school, and if you don't agree, sure, you can go for a hearing in front of the judge, but they're not going to make the other parent pay for private school.
Mm-hmm.
If you're saying, I want my kid to go to this prestigious private school, I'm going to pay for it, and the other parent says, cool. Then you guys can come to an agreement. But education is generally private versus public school. Religion is religion.
Hmm.
Most children were either baptized or not baptized. So if a precedent has been set, they're Catholic, they're Jewish, that is what is going to continue. And the other piece is medical, and it's major medical, elective things like ear tubes, psychiatric medicine. Um, if your child is sick and has an emergency, whatever parent they're with, you take them to the hospital and they can be treated, like appendicitis, or your child has the flu, you bring them to the doctor. You do that, whatever parent they're with. So it's really these major issues, and you would have to prove that this other parent stopped you from making one of these major decisions on these issues to fight for sole custody or final decision making.
And now let's say I made a doctor's appointment and my ex canceled it. And then I made it again and my ex canceled it for an allergist. How significant is that?
Well, then, if the two of you, if he keeps canceling it and your child has never been to an allergist, or, it's interfering in their, they get shots and the ex is not taking them, then you would need to go to court. And that would be an instance where this child needs to see an allergist. It was recommended by their physician, or they've already been in the works of getting these shots. That is something that, the judge would probably say this child needs to be seen at an allergist. If you cannot take them, you know, the mother can come, or the father, whoever, can come and take them and bring them to get their shots.
Yeah.
And again, if the judge orders that, Mr. Jones, when the child is with you, if they have an appointment, you do have to take them because they have a shot, then it would be contempt of court if they didn't.
Yeah. So the thing you mentioned regarding precedent, I always think about routine. Like this is what's already been happening, and
Yeah.
there's enough disruptions in the child's life that you wouldn't want to disrupt the routine anymore, especially with something like school, which is
Yeah.
such a huge part of their lives.
Right. And that's why, if they've been in private school, they'll stay in private school. If they've been in public school, they'll stay. If the kids have done ice hockey since they were 3, they're going to continue with ice hockey. And yes, it will be split, based on child support guidelines or however they agree, 50-50. But, but if now you want your daughter to do equestrian team and the other parent says, no, I can't afford it, I'm not going to, you can sign them up, I'm not going to pay for it, then you're going to pay for it if that's what you want them to do.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay, so you mentioned the magic word contempt. So we know that people who do agree, they have a wonderful agreement, and then somebody violates. And then they're back in court post judgment saying, my ex is not complying. They are in contempt.
Yeah.
Tell me about contempt. What does that mean? Because I thought it meant something stronger than it
No.
did.
No, nobody's really going to jail or anything. I mean, you'd have to owe a lot about. I think in all my years, I've seen 2 people incarcerated for child support, and the bail was
Wow.
but it was the large amounts, and the bail was basically to get out. They paid that bail, and it was the back child support. I've only seen 2 of those cases in all
Wow.
my years. But contempt is, yeah, if you're going in front of the judge, you're probably going to get a lashing from the judge. You can get penalized in terms of paying court fees back, paying lawyer fees if you're found in contempt. Um, Sometimes they can, force some monetary fees, but if it continues and continues and it continues, yes, then it's a reason that you can go for custody decision making. There are times where I have seen judges threaten to take parenting time away. Like if you are not going to co-parent and do these things that you're supposed to do, they can lose their parenting time. It's not in the best interest for the kid to be not see either parent unless there is abuse or neglect. So that is like a last ditch effort, but most people don't want to go in front of a judge and get the lashing and maybe pay court and lawyer fees if they're found in contempt. Some
Yeah.
people, unfortunately, just don't care.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So one of the things that we went to this AFCC conference, and I remember several judges saying things along the line of, we want to do the least intrusive thing that actually fixes the problem.
Hmm.
Is that your experience too?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, with anything, you always want to start with the least intrusive. Whether, if you think about yourself going to get a surgical procedure, you're not going to tell them to take your heart out and give you a new heart. You're going to, try the ablation. You're going to try. So they're trying these things, whether it be, you know, supervised visitation or reunification or co-parenting, like the smaller things versus saying you're not visiting with your child anymore.
Hmm. Yeah. I think it's important for people to realize that because often their ex will violate the agreement and they'll just immediately say, take away custody. But that's pretty
Not
rare.
not gonna happen. Yeah, not. I've had parents that were not great parents, and they still didn't lose their rights. People who had substance abuse problems and over and over and over, and they didn't lose their rights. I mean, kids need both parents. I firmly believe, like I said, unless there is some serious abuse or neglect, or yeah, there are some people that just can't function as parents. But in the most cases, kids should be able to have a relationship with both parents, just as they did when you were married. And their relationship may be better, but it's something you have to go with.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk a tiny bit about parenting plans or an agreement. Are there things that people should either know or make sure to put in when they're thinking about we call it like the constitution you're going to live by moving forward with your kids? What are
Yeah.
things that people miss? What are things you should make sure to consider?
Yeah, so the basics like holidays, summer vacations, school, like the when I say holidays, I include like Memorial Day, Labor Day, Juneteenth, anything that the kids may have off of school or work. Those are important. Parenting plans have to grow and change. If you have a 3-year-old child, we're looking at the here and now. Those are going to change as your kids age and grow and their needs change. So I feel like it does need to be flexible. Um, when people put in, visitation will be liberal and flexible as determined by the parents, that could be great. But I always say have a backup plan, because if the two of you have a disagreement, there is nothing to, hold them by. Then you've got to go back to court and try to get a parenting plan. So even in the best cases, people get pissed off at each other. Have something as a backup. You can have that liberal and flexible in the event we can't come to, we have a disagreement. Here's what the parenting plan would look like.
Yeah, our community cannot have liberal and flexible in their parenting plans.
Yeah. And again, like I said, this is for some people that want to put it. I always
Yeah,
say, just in case.
yeah.
Um, things such as parents' birthdays, Mother's Day, Father's Day. Um, if you celebrate, different, if you're two different religions and maybe the child has been brought up with both religions, make sure you put both religious holidays in. How are you going to split the holidays? Are we splitting them half and half of the day? Are we doing even odd years? Um, Trying to think. I mean, I've written thousands and thousands of
I
parenting
know.
plans.
I know.
Um,
Okay, what about therapy? So often that's a big bone of contention with people in our world where the kid clearly needs some help dealing
mhm.
with all kinds of stuff, and one parent saying, nope, there's nothing wrong with the others, like they need therapy. Is there something we could put in a parenting plan to make sure that there's the ability to get therapy where it's not a major decision?
Mhm. So you can put in there in terms of like you can put it under like medical other, that either parent could engage the child in therapy in the event that either parent is seeing the need for it. Could also put in there the child will be allowed to utilize services, therapeutic services at the school, social work, and that they will take the recommendation of whatever is recommended by the school social worker, who will get to know your child and know your child's educational and family needs at that point. So you could put that in. The other thing is having, I do a lot of parenting coordination, co-parenting. A lot of in Connecticut now, a lot of times they will put a co-parenting coordinator in there. If you guys cannot come to an agreement, you'll meet with the parenting coordinator 3 times, and either you're going based off of their recommendation or then you can return to court. So sometimes leaving it up to another professional that could hear this out and say, okay, let's, get the child in services, or, taking it out of their hands so that the decision is made by somebody who's looking at the best interest of the child.
Yeah. So speaking of that, are there things that I should be thinking about when choosing a therapist for our family, whether it's a family systems therapist or a parenting coordinator? What qualities should I look for? What questions should I be thinking about?
Right. So, I get this question a lot. We get, We get a lot of people that come, oh, we went to a parenting coordinator. A lot of these community agencies offer parenting coordination.
So you were saying, how important it is to choose a professional who is training, extensive experience beyond their own personal situation, et cetera.
Yeah, so if this person was subpoenaed to court, the judge is going to ask what certifications make them qualified to make these decisions. And if they have nothing or they've had some small 2-hour training, everything you've gone through could be out the window. So choose very carefully, pick someone who has the qualifications that make them an expert and be able to do this. So and I get it. Sometimes people are desperate, so they go to these like counseling centers, and there's always a lot of these. And the other thing is making sure the new thing in Connecticut, and I'm sure other states as well, there are people who are associate level licenses. They are not licensed. What it is now, licensing, there's lots of hours, lots of supervision and exam. When you come out of grad school now, the state wants you to pay a fee and they call you an associate level. I've had people who were working with them had no idea that these people were not licensed. So
Wow.
also check people's credentials.
Okay, great. All right. So speaking of that, Sue, tell people how they can find you. And I don't think you mentioned all your credentials when you introduced yourself. So if you can remember all of them, let's hear them.
So I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I am licensed in the states of Connecticut, Massachusetts, New York, and Florida. So I am licensed to practice in any of those states, virtually, in person. Um, and I am a Gottman certified couples therapist. There are only 6 of us here in Connecticut. I am a trained divorce mediator by the state of Connecticut. I'm certified in co-parenting, parent coordination, and I am also, what am I missing here? I'm missing something. Oh, I am EMDR certified for
That's
trauma.
good. Yeah,
That was the other one. And I'm also discernment counseling trained, which people who are coming in, I get a lot of couples that come in. I'm kind of the last stop. They want to try the Gottman method, but then we sometimes do pivot into divorce mediation. So I work with a lot of people. I help, sometimes we can do a divorce where you never have to step foot in a court in Connecticut. We can do all the mediation, all of the paperwork, and I will work with lawyers if needed. Sometimes there might be one issue we need to get resolved, but you would never have to go to court.
that's great. And then your partner also that you work with does more. So tell us that because they can get all of this in one
Yeah.
place, right?
So my colleague is Brittany DeAndrea. She's a licensed clinical social worker. She is also a GAL, which is a guardian ad litem, and she does supervised visitation, reunification. She is also a parent coordinator and co-parenting counselor. She works a lot with children going through divorce. I have a lot of cases. I'll work with the parents. She works with the children. So her specialty is working with the children.
That's great. So how can people find you guys?
So we are online. We have a side business that we kind of created together called Family Court Solutions. There is a website for that. They can also find, if they go to me, my website is Suzanne Gabriel LMFT, and my last name has an E at the end. But if they put in Suzanne Gabriel Norwalk, I pop up. But there's also a link to Brittany through my website, and people will see I have it broken down to court services. We also do anger management. We have a lot of couples, so
You have
anything that's
everything.
yeah, so because the divorce and the domestic violence often go together. In Connecticut, if you're ordered for anger management due to an arrest, a domestic violence arrest, only certain providers can provide that now. We are both approved providers because of our working in family services. So, we sort of have wraparound services. The idea is, I can work with parents, she can work with the children, and kind of collaborate the care. And then we have attorneys that we work with, so we could do some collaborative divorce if necessary. But the idea is stay out of court. It is a hamster wheel. Once you get sucked in, I tell people, strap yourself in. You're looking at people like this would be simple. You're looking at I have some people that are going on 4 years of, the courts. Stay out.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Sue. And I hope to see you in a couple weeks for the next lunch.
I will be there. Looking forward to it.
All right. Take care.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye bye.